The moment Min stepped into the high school auditorium, her heart started racing. The grand piano on stage seemed to be staring right at her, challenging her. She clutched her music sheets tighter, wishing she could disappear. It had been exactly 2 years since she'd performed in front of anyone. 2 years since everything changed. There you are. Mr. Zhao, the music teacher, spotted her lingering by the door. His enthusiasm only made her stomach knot further. I was beginning to think you weren't coming to practice. Min forced a smile. Sorry, I got held up at the library. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had been at the library, deliberately staying until the last possible minute, hoping that maybe Mr. Zhao would give up waiting and find someone else for the regional music competition. But luck wasn't on her side today. Well, you're here now, Mr. Zhao said, gesturing toward the stage. Let's hear what you've prepared. Min took slow steps toward the piano, each one feeling heavier than the last. The auditorium was empty except for Mr. Zhao, but in her mind it was filled with judging eyes and high expectations. She sat down at the bench, placing her sheets on the stand even though she didn't need them. The piece was memorized, had been for years, but the papers gave her something to focus on besides her trembling hands. Her fingers hovered over the keys, suddenly feeling foreign and clumsy. The opening notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 should have flowed naturally, as they did in the safety of her bedroom. Instead, they came out hesitant and disjointed. Stop, Mr. Zhao called out after just 30 seconds. He walked up to the stage, concern etched on his face. Min, what's happening? 2 weeks ago, when I heard you playing in the practice room, it was like listening to a professional. Now it sounds like you've forgotten how to play. Min stared at the black and white keys. I'm just tired, she mumbled. Mr. Zhao wasn't buying it. He sat down next to her on the bench, leaving enough space to not crowd her. You know, when I first heard you playing that day, I couldn't believe it was a student. I stood outside that practice room door for 5 whole minutes, just listening. I've been teaching music for 20 years, and I've only encountered that level of talent a handful of times. Min wished he hadn't heard her that day. She'd thought the music wing was empty after school. It had been her one safe place to play freely, to connect with the memory of her mom through the pieces they'd loved together. Now that private joy had been turned into this, an obligation, a performance, a judgment. The regional competition is a big opportunity, Mr. Zhao continued. The scholarship alone could cover half your college tuition, not to mention the doors it could open for your future. Future, the word hung in the air between them. Before her mom got sick, Min had dreamed of Juilliard. They'd planned campus visits, researched professors, practiced audition pieces. Now those dreams felt like they belonged to someone else. Someone who still believed music could bring happiness instead of pain. I don't think I'm ready, Min said quietly. Mr. Zhao's expression softened. Nobody's ever completely ready. That's part of the beauty of music. There's always room to grow, to feel more, to connect deeper. He stood up, giving her space again. Try once more from the beginning. Just play like you did in that practice room when you thought no one was listening. Min took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys again. She closed her eyes, trying to find that private space in her mind where it was just her and the music. The first few notes came out steadier this time, but still lacking the soul that had once flowed so naturally through her playing. After a few minutes, she stopped abruptly. I can't do this, Mr. Zhao. Please find someone else. He shook his head. There is no one else, Min, not at your level. And the deadline for entries is tomorrow. He checked his watch and sighed. Look, take tonight to think about it. Talk to your dad. I already mentioned the competition to him, and he seemed very supportive. Min's head snapped up. You talked to my dad? When? Parent-teacher conferences last week. He was very proud when I told him about your talent. Mr. Zhao gathered his things. Just consider it, okay? This could be really good for you. After he left, Min sat alone on the piano bench, feeling betrayed. Of course her dad would be excited. He'd been trying to get her to play again for months. He didn't understand that every note reminded her of her mom, of hospital rooms where she'd played recordings of Min's recitals, of promises to attend future performances that could never be kept now. When Min got home, she found her dad in the kitchen, stirring something that smelled like her grandmother's dumpling soup. The familiar scent would normally be comforting, but today it just added to her unease. How was school? He asked, his smile too bright, too expectant. You talked to Mr. Zhao about me. It wasn't a question. Her dad's smile faltered slightly. He's very impressed with your playing. Min says you're the most talented student he's had in years. That Doesn't mean I want to compete, Minnie. Dropped her backpack on a kitchen chair with more force than necessary. I know it's been hard. Since Mom died, her dad said carefully, setting down his spoon. But she would want you to keep playing. Music was the thing that connected you two the most. That's exactly why I can't do it. Min's voice cracked. How am I supposed to sit in front of judges and an audience and play her favorite pieces like it's just some performance? Like it doesn't rip my heart out every time? Her dad was quiet for a long moment. Maybe that's exactly why you should do it, he finally said. Not as a performance, but as a tribute. A way to keep that connection alive. Min shook her head. You don't understand. Then help me understand, he pleaded. Because all I know is that for 2 years I've watched you shut away the thing that used to bring you the most joy. The thing that made you light up from the inside. And I miss seeing that light, Min. I think you miss it too. Min turned away, not wanting him to see the tears forming. Mr. Zhao already entered my name, didn't he? Her dad hesitated. He asked if I would support your participation, and I said yes. But the final decision is yours, is it? Because it feels like everyone's already decided for me. That night, Min couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what her dad had said about keeping the connection alive. Around midnight, she got up and went to her closet, pulling out the box she kept hidden at the back. Inside were programs from all her previous recitals, each with her mom's notes scribbled in the margins. Beautiful dynamics in the third movement. Your best performance yet. So proud of my little star. At the bottom of the box was a letter her mom had written during her final days in hospice. Too weak to speak much, but determined to leave something behind. Min had only read it once the day after the funeral. With trembling hands, she unfolded it again. My dearest Min, it began. There are so many things I won't get to see. Your graduation, your college years, the wonderful woman you'll become. But I've already seen the most beautiful thing in the world. The way you pour your heart into your music. Never stop playing, sweetheart. When you play, I will always hear you. And somewhere, somehow, I'll be listening. Tears splashed onto the paper, and Min carefully folded it back up. She went to her keyboard, plugged in headphones so she wouldn't wake her dad, and began to play. The notes of Chopin's ballade flowed from her fingers, rusty at first, but gradually finding their way. She played until her fingers ached and the sky outside her window began to lighten. When her alarm went off 2 hours later, Min was exhausted but oddly calm. At breakfast, her dad watched her cautiously. I'll do the competition, she said finally. But I'm not doing it for Mr. Zhao or for scholarships or for my future. Her dad nodded, understanding in his eyes. You're doing it for her. And for yourself. I don't know if I can get through it without falling apart, Min admitted. Then fall apart, her dad said simply. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. At school, Min found Mr. Zhao in the music room during lunch. I'll do it, she told him. But on one condition. I choose the pieces. All of them. Mr. Zhao broke into a smile. I wouldn't have it any other way. We'll start practice right after school. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Min, what made you change your mind? She paused at the door. Something my mom wrote to me. She said when I play, she can hear me. Min took a deep breath. I guess I need to know if that's still true. The next few weeks were a blur of practice sessions and emotional breakthroughs. Some days Min played beautifully. Others, she couldn't get through a piece without breaking down. Mr. Zhao was surprisingly patient, never pushing when he saw she needed space, challenging her when she was ready to dig deeper. Her best friend Lily became her unofficial support system, listening to practice sessions and bringing snacks when rehearsals ran long. You don't have to stay, you know, Min told her one afternoon as they sat on the edge of the stage sharing a bag of chips. This must be super boring for you. Lily shook her head. Are you kidding? It's like watching one of those movies where someone overcomes all odds to win the big whatever, except instead of sports, it's piano. And you're way prettier than most movie protagonists. Min laughed, a real laugh, the kind that had been rare these past 2 years. I'm not trying to win, though. I'm just trying to, I don't know, make peace with it, I guess. Well, whatever you're doing, it's working, Lily said. You sound amazing. And more importantly, you look like you again when you play. Like fully alive. The comment stayed with Min long after Lily left. Fully alive. Was that possible? Could she find her way back to loving music without the grief overwhelming everything else? As the competition drew closer, her dad started attending her practice sessions. The first time he heard her play the full ballad, tears streamed down his face. That was your mother's favorite recording, he said afterward. The Vladimir Horowitz version. She used to say that when you played it, you had the same soul in your interpretation. Do you think I'm ready? Min asked, suddenly desperate for reassurance. Her dad smiled, his eyes still wet. I think you've never been more ready for anything in your life. But as the final week before the competition arrived, Min's anxiety returned full force. The thought of playing in front of hundreds of people, of being judged not just on technique, but on the emotion that was still so raw, terrified her. Every night she dreamed of walking onto the stage only to freeze completely, unable to play a single note. The day before the competition, panic finally overwhelmed her. She called Lily in tears. I can't do this, she sobbed into the phone. Everyone's going to be watching me, expecting greatness, and all I can think about is how my mom should be there, but she's not. Then play for her anyway, Lily said quietly. Pretend no one else is there. It's just you, playing for your mom like you've been doing at home all these years. It sounded too simple to work, but as Min practiced one last time that night, she tried to imagine just that. Her mom sitting in the empty chair beside her piano, listening with that small smile that always appeared when Min played particularly well. For the first time in weeks, the music flowed without effort, filled with all the love and grief and hope she'd kept locked inside for so long. Tomorrow would be the moment of truth. Min didn't know if she could recreate this feeling under the bright lights of the competition hall, with judges watching and other competitors waiting to take her place. But she knew she had to try, not because she was being forced, but because somewhere in these past few weeks, she'd rediscovered something important. When she played from her heart, her mom could still hear her, and maybe, just maybe, Min could hear her mom too, in the spaces between the notes. The morning of the regional music competition arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle that matched Min's mood perfectly. She stood at her bedroom window, watching raindrops race down the glass while her dad called from downstairs that they needed to leave in 15 minutes. The dress hanging on her closet door, her mom's favorite blue one that Min had finally grown into, seemed to be waiting expectantly. Just breathe, Min whispered to herself, trying to calm the storm in her stomach. She'd barely slept, practicing in her mind over and over until the notes of Chopin's Ballade had become a haunting soundtrack to her restless dreams. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. You're going to be amazing today. I'll be in the front row with the biggest, most embarrassing poster ever made. Love you. Despite everything, Min smiled. Lily had been her rock these past weeks, sitting through countless practice sessions and always knowing exactly when Min needed encouragement and when she just needed someone to listen in supportive silence. When Min finally came downstairs, her dad was waiting by the door, car keys in hand and a small box wrapped in silver paper on the entry table. What's that? Min asked. Something your mom wanted you to have when you were ready to perform again. His voice was thick with emotion. I've been keeping it safe until the right moment. Min's hands trembled as she unwrapped the gift. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny piano. A note in her mother's handwriting read, "For when you're ready to share your music with the world again, I'll be listening. Always." Tears blurred Min's vision as her dad fastened the bracelet around her wrist. She bought this during her last month, you know. She never gave up hope that you'd find your way back to music. Min couldn't speak. She just nodded and wiped her eyes. The drive to the competition venue took 40 minutes, each passing mile increasing the tightness in Min's chest. The competition was being held at the prestigious Westbrook Academy of Music, a place she'd once dreamed of attending. Now, as the imposing building came into view with its stone columns and wide steps, it looked more like a courthouse where she was about to be judged than a place of artistic expression. You've got this, her dad said as they pulled into the parking lot. Min wasn't so sure. The lobby was packed with other competitors, many practicing finger movements on invisible keyboards. Others sitting in tense silence with earbuds in, listening to recordings of their pieces. Parents huddled in nervous clusters while teachers made last-minute adjustments to sheet music. Mr. Zhao found them almost immediately, his usual calm demeanor replaced by barely contained excitement. There you are. We're running a bit ahead of schedule, so you'll be on in about an hour. The warm-up rooms are down that hallway. Min nodded wordlessly, clutching her music folder so tightly her knuckles turned white. Why don't you go get settled? Her dad suggested. I'll bring your water and find our seats. The warm-up room was tiny, just enough space for an upright piano and a small bench. Min sat down, placing her hands on the keys but not pressing them. Through the thin walls, she could hear snippets of other competitors practicing. Aggressive Beethoven from one room, flowing Debussy from another. Everyone sounded so confident, so prepared. She closed her eyes, remembering Lily's advice, pretend no one else is there. Just play for her mom. But the weight of the moment felt crushing. This wasn't just playing in her bedroom or even practicing in the school auditorium. This was real. Judges with clipboards, an audience watching her every move. Other pianists waiting for her to make a mistake. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Lily poked her head in, grinning widely. Surprise. I told my mom I'd fail my history test next week if she didn't drive me here. She slipped inside and gave Min a quick hug. How are you holding up? I think I'm going to throw up, Min admitted. That's normal. My cousin does competitive swimming, and she throws up before every meet. She says it's good luck. Min laughed despite herself. That's disgusting, but effective. She's going to the state championships. Lily sat beside her on the bench. Have you played anything yet? Min shook her head. I can't seem to make my fingers work. Well, they better start working soon because there's a whole room of people out there who need to have their minds blown. Lily bumped her, shoulder gently against Min's, including a very pretty girl in the third row who keeps asking everyone if they know when the amazing pianist Min is performing. Who? Zoe Chen? From AP Biology? She's been not so secretly crushing on you all year. Min felt her cheeks warm. She has not, has to, and she'll be even more in love after she hears you play. Lily glanced at her phone. I should go find my seat. But seriously, Min, you've got this. When you start getting in your head too much, just look at that bracelet and remember who you're really playing for. After Lily left, Min finally began to warm up, starting with simple scales to loosen her fingers. The familiar exercises calmed her slightly, giving her mind something concrete to focus on besides her fears. By the time a competition official knocked to tell her she had 10 minutes, she had progressed to running through the trickiest passages of her piece. In the hallway outside the performance hall, Min could hear the current competitor playing, a technically flawless but somewhat mechanical rendition of a Mozart sonata. The audience applauded politely when it ended. Next was a boy playing Liszt, his performance so aggressive that Min could practically hear the piano crying for help. Then it was her turn. Representing Oak Ridge High School, Min Chen performing Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor, Opus 23. The announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. Min walked onto the stage, the spotlight momentarily blinding her. The grand piano at the center seemed enormous, gleaming under the lights. The audience was a blur of faces, but she caught glimpses of her dad in the front row, Mr. Zhao a few seats down, and Lily waving enthusiastically. She sat down at the bench, adjusting it slightly. The silence in the hall was absolute. Hundreds of people waiting for her to begin. Her hands shook as she positioned them over the keys. The first notes were supposed to be gentle, questioning, but they came out timid and uncertain. Min winced internally but kept going. The piece built slowly, the left hand providing a steady foundation while the right began the main melody. She hit a wrong note and nearly stopped, her teacher's voice in her head reminding her, "Never show a mistake on your face. Just keep going." By the time she reached the middle section, her anxiety had shifted from paralyzing to energizing. The faster passages that had terrified her in practice now felt like an outlet for her emotions. Her fingers flew across the keys, no longer following her conscious commands but operating on muscle memory and raw feeling. As she played, the audience disappeared. The judges disappeared. Even the piano seemed to fade away until there was nothing but Min and the music and the memory of her mother sitting beside her, listening with that small, proud smile. The bracelet gleamed on her wrist as her hands moved, catching the stage lights with each movement. It was as if her mom was there, guiding her through the emotional landscape of the piece, the quiet yearning of the opening theme, the building tension of the middle section, and now the approaching storm of the finale. Min had always struggled with the final section in practice. It required not just technical skill but emotional abandon, a willingness to let go completely. Today something was different. As she approached those challenging measures, she felt a strange calm wash over her. Instead of fighting the emotion, she surrendered to it. The music poured out of her, no longer Chopin's but somehow her own. Every note infused with the love she felt for her mom, the grief of losing her, and the gradual healing that had begun these past weeks. Her fingers moved with a certainty they hadn't possessed in years, drawing sounds from the piano that seemed to fill the hall with light and shadow. In the audience, her dad watched with tears streaming down his face. Mr. Zhao sat perfectly still, his usual restless energy completely absorbed in the performance. Even the judges had stopped writing on their clipboards, caught in the spell of the music. As Min approached the final measures, the tumultuous conclusion that had to be both technically precise and emotionally overwhelming, she closed her eyes. The last cascade of notes flowed from her fingers like water, building to a final chord that seemed to hang in the air even after she lifted her hands from the keys. For a moment, there was complete silence. Min sat motionless, barely breathing, eyes still closed. Had she failed? Had everyone heard the mistakes she'd made? The moments where her technique had faltered under the weight of her emotions? Then came the applause, hesitant at first, then building into a wave that crashed over her. Min opened her eyes to see people standing, some wiping tears away. Her dad was on his feet, clapping with his whole body the way he used to do at her childhood recitals. Lily was jumping up and down, shouting something Min couldn't hear. Even one of the judges, a stern-looking woman who had maintained a poker face through all the previous performances, was dabbing at the corner of her eye with a tissue. Min stood shakily and bowed, her legs feeling like they might give way beneath her. As she walked off stage, the applause continued. In the wings, Mr. Zhao was waiting, his face a mixture of awe and pride. "Min," he said, his voice hoarse. "That wasn't just playing. That was... I don't even have words." She couldn't speak, overwhelmed by what had just happened. Had she really done it? Had she actually performed in front of all those people without falling apart? More than that, had she finally found a way to play for her mom again without being crushed by grief? Her dad appeared backstage, enveloping her in a hug so tight she could barely breathe. "She heard you," he whispered. "I know she did." Min nodded against his shoulder, tears finally coming. But for the first time in 2 years, they weren't only tears of loss. There was something else mixed in: relief, release, and maybe even joy. The rest of the competition passed in a blur. Min sat in the audience watching the remaining performers, but her mind was elsewhere, still floating in that strange space she'd found on stage where music and memory had merged into something healing. When the judges announced the finalists who would advance to the state competition, Min was so lost in thought that she almost missed her name being called. Lily had to elbow her ribs and practically shove her toward the stage. Standing with the other finalists, Min felt oddly detached from the competitive aspect of the day. Winning had never been her goal. She had come here for something else entirely. And somehow, against all odds, she had found it. Later, as they walked to the car with her finalist certificate and a small trophy, her dad asked, "How do you feel about continuing to the state competition?" "It's in 6 weeks." Min touched the piano charm on her bracelet, feeling its smooth surface under her fingertips. I think I'm ready." For the first time since her mom died, Min felt like she was stepping forward instead of being frozen in place. The pressure that had been building inside her for 2 years had finally found its release, not in breakdown, but in breakthrough. The music was hers again. And somehow, miraculously, so was her mother's memory. No longer a source of unbearable pain, but a presence that could accompany her into the future, one note at a time. The 6 weeks between the regional and state competitions passed in a whirlwind for Min. What had started as something she'd been forced into had transformed into something she approached with cautious excitement. Every day after school, she would head straight to the music room, sometimes practicing until the custodian would gently remind her that he needed to lock up for the night. Mr. Zhao had given her a key to the practice rooms for weekends, a privilege reserved for only the most dedicated students. "Just don't tell the principal," he'd said with a wink. He'd have my job if he knew I was letting you in here unsupervised. At home, Min had started going through her mom's old music collection, scores of sheet music her mother had collected over decades, from classic compositions to modern pieces. Some had notes in the margins in her mom's handwriting, little reminders about tempo or feeling. Min traced these notes with her fingers, feeling closer to her mom than she had in years. "Your playing has changed," her dad observed one evening as Min practiced in their living room. He was sitting in his favorite armchair, a book open on his lap but unread as he listened to her play. Min paused, looking up. "Changed how?" He thought for a moment, searching for the right words. "Before, even when you played perfectly, it was like you were holding something back. Like you were afraid to let the music take you anywhere. Now," he gestured toward the piano, "now it sounds like you're having a conversation with it. Like you're telling each other secrets." Min smiled at the description. It did feel different now. The music had become less about technical perfection and more about expression. She still made mistakes. Her fingers still stumbled sometimes on the most challenging passages, but she no longer froze when it happened. She just kept going, letting the emotion carry her through. For the state competition, Min had decided to play the same Chopin ballade that had carried her through. Regionals, Mr. Zhao had suggested she consider something different. "The judges will be comparing you to your previous performance." But Min had been adamant. "I'm not finished with this piece yet," she told him. "There's more I want to say with it." 3 weeks before the competition, something unexpected happened. Min was practicing after school when she heard a soft knock on the practice room door. She opened it to find Zoe Chen, the girl from AP Biology that Lily had mentioned. "Sorry to interrupt," Zoe said, fidgeting with the strap of her backpack. I heard you playing and I wanted to tell you how beautiful it sounds." Min felt her cheeks warm. "Thanks, I'm preparing for the state competition." "I know. I was at regionals." Zoe's eyes widened slightly as if she hadn't meant to admit that. "I mean, my cousin was competing in the violin section, and I went to support her, but I heard your performance too. It was amazing." They stood there for a moment in awkward silence before Min finally said, "Do you want to come in? You can listen if you want." Zoe's face lit up. "Really, I won't distract you." Min shook her head. "Actually, it helps to have someone listen sometimes. Gives me a better sense of how it comes across." That afternoon turned into a pattern. Zoe started stopping by regularly during Min's practice sessions, sitting quietly in the corner with her homework, occasionally looking up to watch Min play with an expression of such genuine appreciation that it made Min want to play even better. Sometimes they'd talk afterward, about music at first, then school, then life. Min learned that Zoe played guitar but was too shy to perform for anyone. Zoe learned about Min's mom, about how music had been their special connection. "That's why your playing sounds the way it does," Zoe said one day. "It has history in it." The comment stuck with Min, becoming something of a mantra as she prepared for states. Her playing had history, not just her own but her mother's too, and all the emotions that came with it. 2 weeks before the competition, disaster struck. Min woke up with a fever and body aches that left her barely able to get out of bed. The flu, the doctor said. It would pass in a few days, but she needed rest. Those few days stretched into a week. Min tried to practice mentally, running through the piece in her head, but it wasn't the same. By the time she was well enough to return to the piano, she had only days left to prepare, and her fingers felt stiff and clumsy after the break. "Maybe we should withdraw," her dad suggested gently when he found Min in tears after a particularly frustrating practice session. "There will be other competitions." "No," Min said firmly, wiping her face. "I need to do this. I need more time." The next day she approached Mr. Zhao with a radical idea. She wanted to practice through the night at school, using the auditorium piano which was closest in quality to the one she'd be playing at the competition. Mr. Zhao was hesitant. "That's against about a dozen school policies." "Please," Min begged. "I lost a whole week of practice. I need to make up for it." Her teacher studied her face, seeing the determination there. "Your dad would have to agree. And I'd need to be there too, at least until midnight." That Friday, with her dad's reluctant blessing, Min found herself alone in the school auditorium at 1 a.m. Mr. Zhao had finally gone home after hours of helping her work through the most challenging sections of the piece, promising to return early in the morning. The empty auditorium had an eerie quality at night, the rows of seats like silent spectators. Min played through the ballad again and again, sometimes starting from the beginning, sometimes focusing on specific passages. Her fingers were sore, her back ached from sitting on the bench for so long, but she kept going. Around 3 a.m., exhaustion took over. Min laid her head down on the piano, intending to rest for just a moment. She fell asleep to the memory of her mother's voice. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. She dreamed of her mom sitting beside her on the bench playing the opening notes of the ballade. "Listen," her mom said in the dream. "It's not about the notes themselves. It's about the spaces between them. That's where the meaning lives." Min woke with a start when Mr. Zhao gently shook her shoulder. Sunlight was streaming through the high windows of the auditorium. "It was morning. Did you sleep here all night?" he asked, concerned. Min nodded, stretching her stiff neck. "I had the strangest dream about my mom." "And did she have any good advice?" Mr. Zhao asked, handing her a cup of coffee he'd brought. Min took a sip, the warm liquid helping to clear the fog in her mind. "She said it's about the spaces between the notes. That's where the meaning is." Mr. Zhao smiled. "Your mother was a wise woman." That day, Min's playing changed again. Instead of rushing through the difficult passages, she gave them room to breathe. Instead of trying to execute every note perfectly, she focused on the shape of the phrases, the way one moment led into the next. By the time the state competition arrived the following weekend, Min felt ready, not in the sense of being perfectly prepared, but in the sense of being open to whatever might happen. The competition was held in the concert hall of the State University, a venue 5 times the size of the one at regionals. Backstage was chaos, with competitors from across the state warming up in corners, teachers giving last-minute advice, parents hovering anxiously. Min's dad had driven her, along with Lily and, surprisingly, Zoe, who had asked somewhat shyly if she could come watch. They wished her luck before finding their seats, Lily giving her a bone-crushing hug and Zoe squeezing her hand briefly, a gesture that somehow calmed Min's nerves more than anything else. Mr. Zhao found her as she was waiting to be called. "Remember what we talked about," he said. "This isn't about winning. This is about sharing something true." Min nodded, touching the piano charm bracelet on her wrist, now a ritual before performing. When they called her name, she walked onto the stage with steady steps. The grand piano awaited her, even more magnificent than the one at regionals. The audience was a sea of faces, the judges barely visible at their table in the front row. As she sat down at the bench, Min took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment. In her mind, she pictured her mom sitting beside her, just as in her dream. The opening notes of the ballade filled the concert hall, gentle and questioning. This time there was no hesitation in Min's playing, no uncertainty. She had lived with this piece for months now, had poured her grief and love and healing into every measure. It was as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. As she played, Min became aware of something strange. Though she was hitting all the same notes as in her regional performance, the piece sounded different. There was a depth to it now, a richness that hadn't been there before. She was playing not just with technical skill, but with the wisdom that had come from her journey these past weeks. When she reached the middle section, with its building tension and complex harmonies, Min felt herself sliding into a state of flow where time seemed to both expand and contract. Each note had its own life, its own story to tell, and she was simply the channel through which those stories were being shared. The final section approached, the part that had always been the most challenging, both technically and emotionally. In the past, Min had sometimes rushed through it, eager to reach the end before her emotions overwhelmed her. Today, she leaned into those emotions, letting them guide her hands as the music built toward its tumultuous conclusion. The final notes resonated through the hall, hanging in the air for a breathtaking moment before the audience erupted in applause. Min stood and bowed, her heart racing but her mind strangely calm. Whatever happened with the results, she had given everything she had to give. Backstage, her dad was waiting with tears in his eyes. "That wasn't just playing," he said, echoing Mr. Zhao's words from regionals. "That was something else entirely." Lily was practically bouncing with excitement. "You're definitely going to win. Did you see the judges' faces? I thought the one with the bow tie was going to faint." Zoe was quieter, but her eyes were shining. "It felt like you were telling a story," she said. "A really important one?" "I was," Min replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "I was telling my mom's story. And mine." The awards ceremony wouldn't take place until all competitors in all categories had performed, which meant hours of waiting. Min's group went to a nearby cafe to pass the time, talking about everything except the competition results. When they returned to the concert hall for the ceremony, Min felt oddly detached from the outcome. The trophy, the recognition, those things seemed secondary now to what she'd already gained. When they announced the winners, starting with honorable mentions and working their way up, Min held her breath along with everyone else. Third place went to a boy from a performing arts school in the capital. Second place to a girl who had played a technically flawless Rachmaninoff. And the first place winner, who will represent our state at the national competition, is... There was a pause that seemed to stretch for an eternity. Min Chen, performing Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. The audience applauded as Min made her way to the stage, feeling like she was walking in a dream. The judge who handed her the trophy leaned in and whispered, "That was one of the most moving performances I've heard in 20 years of judging. You have a rare gift." Min clutched the trophy, suddenly overwhelmed by the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she couldn't even bring herself to play in front of her dad. Now she was heading to nationals. As she looked out at the audience, she caught sight of her small cheering section. Her dad, Mr. Zhao, Lily, and Zoe, all on their feet, clapping wildly. Behind them, in her mind's eye, Min could almost see her mom standing too, that gentle smile on her face. "Thank you," Min whispered. Not to the judges or the audience, but to her mom, wherever she was. "Thank you for helping me find my way back to music." As she walked off stage, trophy in hand, Min knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead. Nationals would be even more competitive, the pressure even greater. But something had fundamentally changed within her. Music was no longer something that caused pain or something she was forced to do. It had become once again her voice, her joy, her connection to everything that mattered. The weeks following the state competition were a blur of activity and attention that Min had never experienced before. Her win had made the local newspaper, and suddenly everyone at school knew who she was. Teachers stopped her in the hallway to congratulate her. Students she'd never spoken to before smiled and waved as if they were old friends. "You're like a celebrity now," Lily teased as they walked to class together, people turning to look at Min as she passed. "Should I start charging for autographs?" Min rolled her eyes, but she couldn't deny that things had changed. The attention made her uncomfortable at times. She'd always been quiet, happy to blend into the background, but there was something nice about being recognized for doing something she loved rather than pitied as the girl whose mom died. The national competition was scheduled for the end of May in Chicago, giving Min just over 2 months to prepare. Mr. Zhao had suggested that for nationals, she should consider a more technically challenging piece to showcase her abilities. The judges at this level will be looking for virtuosity as well as emotion, he explained, during their first post-state practice session. "What about Liszt's La Campanella? It would really allow you to show off your technical skills." Min had tried the piece, spending a week working through its demanding runs and jumps, but something felt off. The music was impressive, certainly, but it didn't speak to her the way Chopin did. It felt like putting on someone else's clothes. Technically, they might fit, but they didn't feel like hers. "I want to stay with Chopin," she told Mr. Zhao finally, "but maybe a different piece." She pulled out the sheet music for Chopin's Ballade No. 4, a piece her mother had loved but had always said was waiting for Min to grow into it. Mr. Zhao raised his eyebrows. "That's one of the most difficult pieces in the piano repertoire." "Are you sure?" Min nodded. "I've been playing through it at home. I think I'm ready for it now." The fourth ballad was indeed challenging, both technically and interpretively. It began softly, almost contemplatively, before building through increasingly complex variations to a stormy finale that demanded everything a pianist had to give. Min's mother had called it a lifetime in 16 minutes. It contained joy, longing, passion, and heartbreak, all woven together in Chopin's distinctive voice. As Min threw herself into learning the new piece, the rest of her life began to shift too. Zoe became a regular presence, not just during practice sessions but outside of them as well. They started having lunch together, sometimes joined by Lily, sometimes just the two of them, talking about music and books and dreams for the future. "Have you thought about what you'll do after graduation?" Zoe asked one afternoon as they sat on the bleachers watching Lily at track practice. With your talent, you could probably get into any music school in the country. Min had been avoiding thinking too far ahead, focusing instead on the immediate challenge of nationals. But the question made her realize that doors that had seemed closed forever after her mom died were opening again. I used to dream about Juilliard, she admitted. My mom and I had this whole plan. We were going to visit during my junior year, meet with professors, attend a few master classes. You still could, Zoe said. I mean, not with her, but you could still go. Min looked out across the track, watching the runners circle endlessly. Maybe, what about you? Zoe smiled. Film school, hopefully. I want to make documentaries. Tell stories that matter. Is that why you like watching me practice? Research for your future documentary career? Zoe blushed. No, I like watching you practice because... She hesitated, then finished softly. Because when you play, it's like seeing someone's soul. It's beautiful. The moment hung between them, delicate and new. Min felt her heart speed up. Before she could respond, Lily came jogging over. Her practice finished and the conversation shifted. But something had changed. A door cracked open that hadn't been there before. As the weeks passed, Min's preparation for nationals intensified. The new ballade was proving even more challenging than she'd anticipated. The middle section, with its complex counterpoint and rapid hand crossings, sometimes left her frustrated to the point of tears. Maybe Mr. Zhao was right, she told her dad after a particularly difficult practice session. Maybe I should have chosen something easier. Her dad, who had been listening from the kitchen, came to sit beside her on the piano bench. Do you remember when you were 7 and you decided you wanted to learn to ride a bike without training wheels? Min nodded, not sure where he was going with this. You fell off that bike at least 20 times. Your knees were scraped raw, but you wouldn't let me put the training wheels back on. You said, I'd rather fall 100 times than go backward. Min finished, the memory coming back to her. Her dad smiled. You've always been stubborn about the things that matter to you. Your mom used to say it was your best quality, and your most exhausting one. The mention of her mom brought a familiar ache, but it was softer now, more bittersweet than raw. Do you think she'd be proud of how far I've come? Oh, Min, her dad said, his voice thick with emotion. She was always proud. But yes, seeing you now, finding your way back to music, back to yourself, she would be over the moon. With renewed determination, Min pushed through the difficulties of the piece. She worked with Mr. Zhao every day after school, sometimes for hours. On weekends, she practiced at home, her dad bringing her sandwiches when she forgot to stop for lunch. 3 weeks before nationals, the school organized a special recital, a chance for Min to perform her competition piece in front of an audience before the big day. The auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and community members who had read about Min in the paper and wanted to hear her play. Standing backstage, Min felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but it was different now, more like excitement than fear. She peeked through the curtain and saw her small circle of support in the front row. Her dad, Mr. Zhao, Lily, and Zoe, all giving her encouraging smiles. When she walked onto the stage, the applause was immediate and warm. Min took her place at the piano, adjusting the bench, taking a moment to center herself. As she began to play, the opening notes of the fourth ballade floating out across the hushed auditorium, she felt that now familiar sense of connection to the music, to her audience, to her mother's memory. The piece unfolded beneath her fingers, each section flowing naturally into the next. When she reached the challenging middle part that had given her so much trouble, she didn't think about the technical demands but about the story she was telling, a story of loss and resilience, of finding beauty amid pain. By the time she reached the thunderous coda, Min was playing with a freedom and confidence that surprised even her. The final chords resonated through the hall, and for a moment there was absolute silence before the audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Backstage afterward, surrounded by well-wishers, Min felt a strange mix of exhaustion and elation. She had given everything to that performance, and somehow it had been enough. Zoe found her as the crowd was thinning. That was... She shook her head, apparently lost for words. I don't even know how to describe it. Was it okay? Min asked, suddenly needing reassurance. In answer, Zoe leaned forward and kissed her cheek quickly. It was perfect, she whispered before disappearing back into the crowd, leaving Min touching the spot where Zoe's lips had been. a smile spreading across her face. That night, Min dreamed of her mother again. They were walking together through a garden filled with flowers that turned into musical notes as they passed. "Are you coming to Chicago?" Min asked in the dream. Her mother smiled that familiar gentle smile. "I'm always with you," she said, touching Min's bracelet. "Whenever you play, I'm there, listening." The dream stayed with Min as the days counted down to nationals. She carried it with her on the plane to Chicago, her dad beside her, both of them a mix of nervous and excited. Mr. Zhao had flown out the day before to attend a teachers' conference associated with the competition. Lily and Zoe had wanted to come but couldn't miss their final exams. So they had made Min promise to video call them before and after her performance. Chicago was bigger and busier than any city Min had ever visited. Their hotel was just a few blocks from the Symphony Center where the competition would be held. A gorgeous, historic building with perfect acoustics and a storied history of legendary performances. The day before the competition, Min was allowed a brief rehearsal on the actual piano she would be playing, a magnificent concert grand that responded to her touch like a living thing. The hall was empty except for a few staff members and some of the competition organizers, but Min could feel the weight of all the great musicians who had played on that stage before her. That evening, her dad took her to dinner at a quiet restaurant near their hotel. "No matter what happens tomorrow," he said as they waited for their food, "I want you to know how proud I am of you, not just because of how beautifully you play, but because of the person you've become through all of this." Min felt tears prick at the back of her eyes. "I couldn't have done any of it without you, Dad. The way you've supported me even when I pushed everyone away after Mom died." He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We got through it together. That's what family does." The morning of the competition dawned bright and clear. Min woke early, too nervous to sleep. She went through her now familiar ritual, a light breakfast, gentle stretching exercises for her hands and wrists, mentally running through the most challenging passages of the piece. Her phone buzzed with a video call from Lily and Zoe, both of them still in their pajamas, hair messy but eyes bright with excitement. "Are you ready to blow everyone's minds?" Lily asked. Min laughed. "I'm just trying not to throw up right now." "You're going to be amazing," Zoe said softly. "Just play like you did at the recital. Play like no one's watching and everyone's listening." Min carried those words with her as she and her dad walked to the Symphony Center. The lobby was filled with young musicians from across the country, many with their parents and teachers, all with that same mix of excitement and terror that Min recognized in herself. Mr. Zhao found them by the registration desk, his usual energy turned up even higher. "The level of talent here is incredible," he told Min, "but none of them play with your heart. Remember that." As Min waited backstage for her turn, watching other pianists come and go, some in tears, some beaming with relief, she felt strangely calm. She had done everything she could to prepare. Now all that was left was to share her music, her story, her heart. When they called her name, Min walked onto the grand stage, the lights momentarily blinding her. The hall was packed, every seat filled. Somewhere in that sea of faces were her dad and Mr. Zhao, supporting her as they had throughout this journey. And somewhere, Min believed her mother was listening too. She sat down at the piano, touched the charm bracelet on her wrist, and began to play. The music flowed from her fingers, no longer Chopin's alone, but hers too, every note infused with the joy and pain of her own story. As the final movement approached, Min felt herself reaching that transcendent state where the boundary between player and music dissolved. The thunderous conclusion poured from her with a power and passion that seemed to fill the entire hall. When the last note faded, there was a beat of silence before the audience burst into applause. Min stood and bowed, her heart racing but her spirits soaring. Whatever the judges decided, she had given everything she had to give. She had played not for scores or trophies, but for something far more valuable, the chance to honor her mother's memory and reclaim her own voice. Backstage, her dad was waiting with tears in his eyes and open arms. "She heard you," he whispered as he hugged her. "I know she did." And Min, wrapped in her father's embrace, knew it was true. The results of the national competition wouldn't be announced until that evening. Min spent the afternoon in a strange limbo, too wired to nap but too drained to do much else. She and her dad walked along the Chicago riverfront, taking in the sights of the city, talking about everything except the competition. Do you remember that time when you were about 6? Her dad said as they leaned against a railing watching tour boats glide by. And Mom took you to your first real concert at the symphony? Min smiled at the memory. I wore that ridiculous puffy dress that I insisted on buying. You said you needed to dress like a real musician, her dad laughed. And afterward, you couldn't stop talking about the pianist. You told everyone who would listen that someday you would play on a stage like that. I guess I did end up on a pretty big stage today, Min said, looking back toward the direction of the Symphony Center where she had performed just hours ago. Her dad put his arm around her shoulders. Your mom would be so proud of how far you've come, not just as a musician but as a person. Min leaned into his embrace, grateful for his steady presence through all the ups and downs of the past few years. They had both been broken by her mom's death in different ways, but somehow they had found a path forward together. Back at the hotel, Min called Lily and Zoe to fill them in on how the performance had gone. I just played my heart out and didn't worry about winning, she told them. It was the most free I've ever felt while playing. That's our girl. Lily cheered, conquering the piano world one competition at a time. Zoe was quieter, but her smile was warm. I wish I could have been there to hear it. I'll play it for you when I get back, Min promised, feeling a flutter in her stomach at the thought. As the time for the award ceremony approached, Min changed into the dress she had brought for the occasion, a simple blue dress similar to her mom's favorite, the one Min had worn at regionals. She fastened the piano charm bracelet around her wrist and took a deep breath, studying her reflection in the mirror. The girl who looked back at her was different from the one who had reluctantly agreed to compete those many months ago. There was a confidence in her eyes now, a sense of purpose that had been missing since her mother died. Mr. Zhao met them in the lobby, his usual energy somewhat subdued by nerves. No matter what happens, he told Min as they walked to the ceremony together, what you played today was special, the kind of performance that reminds people why we make music in the first place. The ceremony was held in a smaller recital hall within the Symphony Center, but it was still grand, with crystal chandeliers and rich wooden paneling. All the competitors sat in the front rows, a tense sea of fancy dresses and suits, while family members, teachers, and other supporters filled the rest of the space. Min sat between her dad and Mr. Zhao, trying to stay calm as the various awards were announced, starting with the younger age divisions. By the time they reached her division, senior piano, her palms were sweating and her heart was racing. The judges have noted that the level of talent this year was extraordinary, the announcer was saying, making their decisions particularly difficult. Min closed her eyes briefly, thinking of her mother, drawing strength from the memory of her gentle encouragement. The third place award goes to Thomas Wu from California for his performance of Prokofiev's Piano Sonata No. 7. A boy a few rows ahead stood to accept his trophy, his face a mix of pride and disappointment. The second place award goes to Ava Richardson from New York for her performance of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. A tall girl with a serious expression made her way to the stage. Min had heard her play during the competition. She was technically flawless, with incredible power and precision, and the first-place gold medal, with a scholarship to the summer program at the National Conservatory, goes to... The pause seemed to stretch for an eternity. Min held her breath, her dad's hand finding hers and squeezing tightly. Min Chen from Oak Ridge, for her performance of Chopin's Ballade No. 4 in F minor. For a moment, Min couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe what she had just heard. Her dad was hugging her. Mr. Zhao was beaming with pride, and somehow her legs carried her to the stage where she accepted the trophy with hands that seemed to belong to someone else. Thank you, she managed to say into the microphone, when asked if she wanted to share a few words. This performance was dedicated to my mom, who taught me that music isn't about being perfect, it's about being honest. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. There was a reception afterward where Min was approached by representatives from prestigious music schools, by competition officials, by other competitors offering congratulations. Her phone was flooded with messages from Lily, Zoe, classmates, even the local newspaper back home asking for an interview. It wasn't until much later, back in her hotel room, that the reality of what had happened truly sank in. Min sat on the edge of the bed, holding the trophy and looking at the certificate that came with it. official acknowledgement that she, Min Chen, was considered one of the best young pianists in the country. But it wasn't the trophy or the recognition that brought tears to her eyes. It was the realization of how far she had come from that broken girl who couldn't bear to touch the piano after her mother died. Music, which had once been a source of unbearable pain, had become her healing, her voice, her connection to both her past and her future. Min placed the trophy on the bedside table and opened the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline glittering against the night sky. "I did it, Mom," she whispered. "I found my way back." The flight home the next day was filled with excited planning. The summer program at the National Conservatory would start just a few weeks after graduation. After that, there would be college applications, with several schools already expressing interest in recruiting Min. "Do you think you'll apply to Juilliard?" Mr. Zhao asked during the flight. "With this win and your talent, you'd have an excellent chance." Min looked out the airplane window at the clouds below. "I think I will. It was always the dream, Mom's and mine." When they landed, they were surprised to find a small welcoming committee waiting at the airport, Lily and Zoe holding a homemade banner that read, "Welcome Home National Champion," along with several of Min's classmates and even the school principal. "We're so proud of you," the principal said, shaking her hand. "You've put our school on the map." Lily nearly tackled her with a hug. "I told everyone you would win. I've been insufferably smug about it all day." Zoe hung back slightly, but her eyes were shining. When the initial excitement died down and people began to disperse, she stepped forward and handed Min a small wrapped package. "What's this?" Min asked. "Just a little something to say congratulations," Zoe said, suddenly shy. "Open it later." That evening, after all the excitement had settled and Min was finally alone in her room, she unwrapped Zoe's gift. It was a journal, bound in soft leather with a treble clef embossed on the cover. Inside, Zoe had written on the first page, "For all the music still waiting to be played. Your story is just beginning." Min ran her fingers over the words, a warmth spreading through her chest. She reached for her phone and texted Zoe, "Thank you for the perfect gift. Would you like to go out sometime? Just the two of us?" The response came almost immediately. "I thought you'd never ask." The next week was a whirlwind of media interviews, school celebrations, and preparation for the upcoming graduation ceremony, where Min had been asked to perform. She chose a piece she had composed herself, something she had started working on secretly during those long hours of practice, a melody that had come to her in fragments and gradually taken shape. On the night before graduation, Min sat at her piano at home, putting the finishing touches on her composition. Her dad came in and sat in the armchair, listening as she played through it. "It's beautiful," he said when she finished. "Does it have a name?" Min nodded. "I'm calling it Coming Home." The piece was a journey in itself, beginning with hesitant, searching notes that gradually found their way to a theme of quiet strength, building to moments of both joy and sorrow before resolving in a conclusion that felt like an embrace, like forgiveness, like peace. Graduation day dawned bright and clear. Min stood backstage in her cap and gown, waiting to be introduced for her performance. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see her dad in the audience, sitting next to Mr. Zhao. Lily and her family were a few rows back, and beside them was Zoe, looking up at the stage with such belief in her eyes that Min felt invincible. When the principal announced her, the applause was thunderous. Min walked to the piano with steady steps, no longer the reluctant, frightened girl who had been forced to play against her will at the beginning of the year. This performance was entirely her choice, her gift to her school, to her supporters, to herself. "I'd like to dedicate this piece to my mother, who taught me that music is the voice of the heart," Min said into the microphone, "and to everyone who helped me find that voice again when I thought it was lost forever." As she began to play, her original composition flowing from her fingers, Min felt that now familiar sense of connection to the music, to her audience, to her own journey of healing. When she reached the final movement, the part that she thought of as coming home, she closed her eyes and let the music carry her. The last notes hung in the air like a promise. There was a moment of profound silence before the audience rose to their feet, applauding with such emotion that Min felt it like a physical wave washing over her. She stood and bowed, tears streaming down her face, not tears of sorrow or grief, but of gratitude and joy. Later, as she accepted her diploma and moved her tassel from right to left, Min caught her dad's eye in the audience. He was crying too, but smiling through his tears, so full of pride it seemed to radiate from him. That evening there was a party at their house, a celebration of both graduation and Min's national win. Friends, teachers, and family filled the rooms, spilling out onto the back porch and lawn. At one point, Min found herself standing next to the piano, looking around at all the people who had been part of her journey. Lily was by the food table, making everyone laugh with her dramatic retelling of Min's competitions. Mr. Zhao was deep in conversation with another teacher about music education. Zoe was helping Min's dad bring out more drinks, the two of them having bonded over their shared pride in Min, and somewhere, Min believed with her whole heart. Her mom was there too, not in the painful way of absence and loss that had dominated these past years, but in the joyful way of memory and love that endures. Min sat down at the piano, and the room gradually quieted as people noticed. Without announcement or fanfare, she began to play Chopin's Ballade No. 1, the piece that had started her journey back to music. As the familiar notes filled the room, Min felt herself come full circle. What had once been forced upon her had become her choice, her voice, her strength. The music flowed through her, no longer causing pain but healing it. No longer a reminder of what she had lost, but a celebration of what remained. Love that continued even when the person was gone. Beauty that could be found even amid sorrow. When she finished, there was no applause, just a peaceful silence filled with understanding. Min looked up to find her dad standing nearby, his eyes shining with tears. "She's still listening, isn't she?" Min asked softly. Her dad nodded. "Always." And Min knew with a certainty that filled her heart completely that he was right. The music would always be their connection, across time, across loss, across whatever the future might hold. She had been forced to play against her will, and it had left a room in tears. But those tears had washed away old grief and made space for new joy. The journey wasn't over. There would be the summer program, college, a whole career of music ahead. But the most important step had already been taken. Min had found her way home,